Right, ready to dive into something pretty deep today. We're going to really dig into this chapter from A Matter of Truth. And it's tackling a question that, well, might catch you off guard a little. Why does God need witnesses?
Yeah, it makes you think, right? Like, wait a minute, isn't God supposed to know everything?
Exactly. That was my first thought, too. Like, why would he need any kind of proof? If he's all-knowing. But this author is really taking things in a different direction. They're saying that even God, as the judge, needs witnesses to make sure everything's fair, especially when it comes to Satan.
Right, they're kind of looking at it like a courtroom, you know? God's the ultimate judge.
Okay, so it's like a cosmic courtroom drama. That's a pretty interesting way to think about it.
Yeah.
But I'm still kind of stuck on the whole, why does God need this legal process? If he already knows everything, why bother?
That's the big question, and the author gets right into that. They say, remember, Satan's the master of deception, right? So he's been spreading these lies about God, accusing him of creating evil. Basically, it's like he's putting God's character on trial.
So it's not just about proving what really happened. It's about defending God's reputation, too.
Exactly. It's like if there are accusations out there, even against God, there needs to be a fair process to address them. You can't just ignore it. And that's where witnesses come in.
And the author uses specific verses from the Bible to support this, doesn't
Oh,
he?
absolutely. They point to passages like in Isaiah 43.012. It's where God's actually calling on his people to be witnesses. And it's not just a couple of witnesses either. They bring up Deuteronomy 17.6, which you might recall that's the law about needing multiple witnesses, like for a death sentence.
Multiple witnesses for a serious sentence. Wow.
Oh.
Okay, so we've got this cosmic trial. God needs witnesses to make sure justice happens. But who's the main witness in all this? Who takes the stand, so to speak?
Well, the author points to Jesus, calling him the faithful witness. They use Revelation 1.5 and 3.14. But here's where it gets really interesting. These titles, they're specifically used for Jesus after he comes back to life, after the resurrection.
After the resurrection. Wow, okay. I don't think I've heard that before. How does that fit into needing witnesses?
It leads to a pretty big shift in how we might look at Genesis 1. The author's proposing that maybe it's not talking about the very first creation, but more like a restoration, like the earth had already been messed up, corrupted by Satan and his followers.
Hold on, so you're saying there was something before Adam and Eve, a pre-Adamic age?
That's what they're saying. And they use some verses like Deuteronomy 4.23 and Ecclesiastes 3.15. They sort of hint at a conflict, a war in heaven, even before humans were around. The author says this pre-Adamic age had angels involved, specifically the ones called Elohim.
Elohim, now that's a word I've heard, but honestly, I'm not sure I really get what it means.
It's tricky because Elohim can be used in different ways in the Bible. Sometimes it just means God, but it can also refer to these powerful spiritual beings like angels. In this case, the author says the Elohim were these angels who were like rulers over Earth and other planets. Some of them, well, they rebelled against God. Hence that whole ancient conflict we were talking about.
Wow, so it's not just about Satan. There were other angels involved in this whole rebellion thing.
That's right. And the author even uses Isaiah 10.33 and Isaiah 24.20 through 23 as descriptions of how God punished these fallen Elohim.
So let me try to get this straight. God creates this amazing earth, puts angels in charge, and they basically stage a coup. And now God needs witnesses to, what? Set the record straight and bring order back.
Yeah, that's the gist of it. And that's where we, humanity, come in. The author argues that part of the reason God created humans was to replace those fallen Elohim, like giving us a chance to show that free will can be used for good.
Whoa, replacing rebellious angels, that's a big responsibility. How does the author connect humans and angels like that?
They use a couple of places in the Bible, like Psalm 8.1-6 and Genesis 1.26-27. Remember how Psalm 8 says humans are a little lower than the angels? They say that was a deliberate choice by God, like creating us with the potential to rise up to the level of those who fell.
So we're like the understudies ready to step in and prove ourselves worthy. That's a pretty mind-blowing idea.
It really is. And it adds another layer to why God needs witnesses, right? It's not just about proving Satan's guilty, but also showing that creation can be faithful, righteous, proving that God's plan for a loving and just creation can actually work. And humans were a key part of that.
This is giving me a whole new way to think about humanity's place in all of this. We're not just watching, we're part of this cosmic drama unfolding. But what happens if we mess up, if we fail the test? Does the author talk about that at all?
That's where things get even more interesting. This idea that humans are replacing fallen angels, the author says, it's not just a one-time thing in the past, it's like an ongoing process. They bring up a verse from Thessalonians Thessalonians 2.34, and it talks about a falling away, this man of sin who's going to deceive a lot of people. It's like this constant struggle between truth and lies, and we're right in the middle of it.
Okay, now that's a little scary, honestly. So it's not just that some angels went bad way back when, but that we could fall into the same trap. We're constantly being tested, kind of.
That's how the author sees it. And they connect this to some of the things we see happening today, like all those conspiracy theories about ancient aliens. Some people might think it's crazy, but if you really think about it, it plays into this idea that there are these powerful beings messing with us, manipulating us behind the scenes, like a modern echo of that ancient conflict.
That's a really interesting connection. It's like those stories, even if we don't buy into them, they tap into this idea of a battle between good and evil, right? So it's not just about avoiding obvious evil, but being smart enough to see those sneakier deceptions that could lead us astray.
Right. And the author even goes so far as to say some of those deceptions might be aimed at making us doubt God, making us question his word, his authority. It's like they're trying to sabotage us as witnesses by making us question the very one we're supposed to be witnessing for.
Okay, so we've got this pre-Adamic age, these fallen angels, and now humans are stepping up as witnesses. But the author isn't just throwing this stuff out there. He actually gets into some pretty specific details to support his ideas.
Yeah.
What are some of the examples that stood out to you?
Well, one that really got me thinking was how he looks at the Hebrew word bara. We usually translate it as create, right? But he suggests it can also mean to cut down or even to divide.
Okay, hold on. How does that fit into everything we've been talking about? I'm no Hebrew expert. You might have to walk me through this one.
Sure. It's about that verse in Genesis 1.21 where God supposedly created great whales. The author says, what if that verse is actually describing God cutting down a powerful being, maybe even Satan himself, or one of his top guys, who was rebellious?
Whoa, that's a pretty different way to look at it. So instead of just making whales, it's describing a defeat, like God's removing this corrupting force from creation.
Exactly, and it fits with this idea that God's restoring the earth after it was corrupted. He's starting fresh, making a new order where good can thrive, and humans, well, we get to be part of that new order.
So if we're taking the place of these rebellious angels, does that mean we can become like them? Reach their level of power and authority? Does the author talk about that?
It's definitely something he wrestles with. He brings up Psalm 8 again, where it talks about humans being crowned with glory and honor, having dominion over creation. It's almost like we're given this authority that reflects our potential, being made in God's image.
It's like we're given this amazing opportunity, but also a huge responsibility to use it wisely, to not make the same mistakes as those who messed up before us.
Precisely. And I think that's a key takeaway for anyone listening, no matter what you believe. If we're truly part of this cosmic story, our choices matter. It's not just about saving ourselves, it's about playing a role in something much bigger, something that affects all of creation.
It's like realizing you're not just an extra in the movie, you're one of the main characters. And that should both inspire us and kind of scare us a little, don't you think?
Absolutely. And it begs the question, what's the whole point of all this? Where is this cosmic drama headed? Does the author give us any clues?
Yeah, I'm curious about that too. What does he see as the end goal, the big finale?
Well, he emphasizes that God wants to get rid of evil, injustice, for good. To have a creation where righteousness wins, where his glory is on full display. It's not just about punishing the bad guys. It's about redeeming creation, bringing it back to what it was supposed to be, even going beyond that.
So this cosmic trial isn't just about settling scores. It's about something way bigger, reaching this level of justice and righteousness that we can't even imagine.
That's exactly what he seems to be saying. And we, as witnesses, we're not just watching from the sidelines, we're active participants in that process. Our faithfulness, our commitment to truth, it actually contributes to good winning over evil in the end.
Wow. That's a powerful thought. It's like our lives, our everyday choices, they're all part of this huge tapestry of redemption. We're not just living our own little stories. We're part of a much bigger narrative, a story that's still being written.
It is. And it connects back to that idea of replacing fallen angels, right? It's not just about filling a spot. It's about being something different, something better, reflecting God's character in a way that those who rebelled against him couldn't.
So it's not just about power and authority. It's about character, about showing God's love, justice, mercy in everything we do. That's a pretty tall order. But it's also amazing to think that we have a role to play in this whole cosmic restoration.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole discussion so much more than just thinking about ideas, right? It challenges us to look at our own lives, to see our choices, our actions as part of this bigger cosmic drama. It's a call to live with purpose, to see our lives as part of something way beyond what we can understand.
When we started this deep dive, I thought it would be all theoretical, but it's become something much more personal, much deeper. It's like we've gotten a peek behind the curtain, and now we can't help but see the world and our place in it in a whole new light.
That's the power of really wrestling with these big questions, isn't it? It's not just about finding answers, it's about broadening our perspective, challenging what we think we know, and maybe even getting a glimpse of something truly awe-inspiring.
Speaking of awe-inspiring, we've talked about God needing witnesses, Jesus' role, the pre-Adamic age, even humans potentially replacing fallen angels. What does the author see as the ultimate takeaway from all of this? Where does this understanding lead us?
That's a great question. And I think he would say it leads us to a deeper understanding of our own potential and maybe an even bigger sense of responsibility.
Okay, I can see that. But what does that mean practically? What does it look like to actually embrace that potential and responsibility in our everyday lives? How do we move beyond just knowing about this cosmic drama to actually participating in it in a real way?
That's the big question, right? It's easy to talk about these big ideas, but how do we actually, live them? What does it even mean to be a witness in this whole cosmic thing, like practically in our everyday lives?
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering too. It's one thing to understand it all, but how do we actually put it into practice?
Well, I think it starts with realizing that it's not all about us, It's about trying to align ourselves with what God wants, seeking his guidance, letting him work through us. It's about reflecting his character in a world that, well, often seems kind of lost.
So it's more than just like going to church or praying.
Yeah.
It's about showing God's love, his justice, his mercy in how we treat other people, the choices we make, how we work, our relationships, all of it.
Exactly. It's like realizing that every moment, every interaction, it's a chance to be a witness, to shine a light in the darkness, to offer hope, healing in a world that really needs it.
It's like we're ambassadors, right? Representing a whole different kingdom, a different way of being. But that can feel pretty overwhelming, honestly. How do we even begin to live up to something like that?
Yeah, I don't think it's about being perfect or having it all figured out. It's about those small steps, those daily choices that reflect God's heart, Being kind, forgiving, just merciful, even when it's tough, even when we don't want to be.
So it's about those little acts of love and kindness, like when we choose to put others first, or speak up for what's right, offer help, forgive someone who's hurt us. Those things might seem small, but maybe that's how we're part of this cosmic drama. One little act of faithfulness at a time.
I think you're right on. It's like each act of kindness, each time we're brave, each time we choose truth, it's like adding a little piece to this huge picture of redemption. By itself, it might not look like much, but when you see the whole thing, it's amazing.
Like a mosaic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Each piece is tiny, doesn't seem that important, but when you put them all together, it's beautiful. Something much bigger than all the little pieces.
Exactly. And that's what makes this whole being a witness thing so powerful. We might feel small, like we don't matter much, but we're part of something huge, something incredible. And even our smallest efforts, when we're faithful, they make a difference.
That's encouraging. It reminds me that we don't have to know everything. We don't have to be perfect. We just have to be willing to take those small steps, be faithful in the little things, and trust that God will use them.
And I think that's something everyone can relate to no matter what their background is, what they believe. We all have the potential to do good, to make a difference in the world. It's about seeing that potential in ourselves and choosing to live it out.
This deep dive, wow, it's been a lot.
Yeah.
So much information, so many insights. We've gone through ancient scriptures, these mind-blowing ideas, pre-Adamic age, why God needs witnesses, even humanity's potential to be like taking the place of angels. It's a lot to take in.
Yeah, and hopefully it's made you curious, made you want to explore these ideas more, and maybe even renew that commitment to playing your part in this whole cosmic drama, Because we all have a part.
To everyone listening, I hope this deep dive has really gotten you thinking. And remember, it's not just about listening and learning. It's about taking what we've talked about and actually applying it to our lives, letting it change our choices, our actions, and, even our destinies.
Keep searching for truth, keep asking those questions, and keep looking for those chances to be a witness, to make a difference, to leave the world better than you found it, because that's what it's all about in the end.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
For sound biblical doctrine. a matter of truth. That agrees with the whole word of Almighty God. Please go to my following websites. A Matter of Truth. The Church of the Firstborn. Mark at a Matter of Truth. The True Deity of Jesus. And for songs and videos, A Matter of Truth 8. You can scan the QR code to go to my main website at A Matter of Truth. Or you can pause the video to write down the URL to my following websites. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment.